Welcome to another episode of the Sports Sentiment. I am your host, Nick Urias, and we are back once again talking college football. Week 0 has came and gone, and week 1 is finally here. We're going to be talking Mountain West week 1 preview predictions. We got ourselves a full slate. We had 3 games in the week 0 slate as far as Mountain West teams involved. We had 5 games total. I do want to briefly touch on those week 0 results because I think we learned some things about some of those new Mountain West squads that to a certain extent were big fat question marks heading into the year. I'm looking at that UNLV team and Fresno State team as they had a bunch of roster overhaul, new head coaches, and we finally got to see them take the field for the first time. Now we're going to get all these teams in week 1. San Jose State versus Central Michigan. San Diego State in year 2 with Sean Lewis facing the Stony Brook Seawolves. You got Wyoming in a fascinating game Thursday night in Akron. You got the polarizing Boise State and South Florida game, which everybody seems to like the public underdog in the South Florida Bulls. We're going to be talking about all those games. And, I'm going to give my thoughts and what I personally think is going to happen in some of those. I have to say, we were pretty sharp in week 0. I'm not going to toot my own horn here for too long, but I'm going to pat myself and give myself a whole lot of credit here for, I'm not going to say nailing these games, but to a certain extent being kind of sharp on, just what we thought was going to happen, and it really did. The only game that we really kind of got wrong was the Idaho State UNLV game. We knew UNLV was going to score some points, but we'll start out right there. Let's give the Idaho State Bengals some credit. And, I think the overwhelming, public perception was, hey, Idaho State's an FCS. They're a lousy FCS. The Bengals from Pocatello are just going to get absolutely destroyed in Las Vegas. But UNLV, I remember they destroyed Utah Tech like last year, 2 years ago. Years ago when they were in the basement of the Mountain West, like they lost to like Howard and they lost to Cam Newton's brother of all people. So, it was just a very interesting spot. Like once when you saw Idaho State just go up and down the field and the mislapses that UNLV had on defense, it's like, oh my goodness. Idaho State had a lead at half. The Rebels couldn't tackle. Tons of busted coverages. I would say Anthony Calandria is the QB1. I could firmly say that. I thought he looked better. Alex Orji had the fumble in the end zone in the first quarter. I thought that was obviously a red flag. Any turnover is bad, but when you fumble it in the end zone, it's even worse. I thought just overall, the Bengals' body of work was impressive. Defensively, they need some work, but UNLV needs some work, quite honestly. And I think offensively, they could be playing a whole lot better. I know they dropped 38 points, but let's just be honest here. Jet Thomas was the star of the show. He absolutely boat raced his team, and we knew he was. A lot of times, these running backs, when they go up against these FCS teams, they just feast. And that's a lot of that due to because the offensive lines just create these massive holes. And, the running backs are talented enough where they're just going to go off and ultimately what's probably like a 20-yard chunk in some of these games versus, some realistic talent on the other side and some equal talent on the other side. In these FCS games, it turns into an 80-yard rush. And we saw that a couple times in this game. One, I think it was like a 78-yard run from Jet Thomas. And then we saw like some other 30, 20-yard chunks along the way. I thought Calandria could have worked on some stuff on his end for UNLV, but he was much more fluid within the offense compared to a guy in Alex Orji. I think Orji is going to be great in some spots this year in some certain packages. I think you're going to see Orji like how they do in the Canadian Football League. Like they just bring in the backup quarterback and they just keep him under center and they just let him go, power run and let him get the 1 yard. I think that's what you're going to see from Orji this year. Certain packages, he'll definitely be successful compared to a guy in Calandria. But I think overall, Calandria is going to be the guy navigating this offense for the Rebels more often than not. UNLV has tons of these guys defensively, like, Amaris Brown and Justin Flo and Jake Pope, where they're on their second and third school. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to mesh. I mean, we see this all the time. And that goes back to my point about this, a couple weeks ago, where I like teams in week one that have roster continuity, because when you get 40, 50 portal kids, yeah, like, sure, it'll look good in fall camp and it'll look good in practice, but you got to go out and hit somebody. So, that was my whole pushback on, just overall these Mountain West teams this year, and going into the season. I think college football as a whole, like, I think any team that has roster continuity and has guys that have played with each other, specifically within certain positions on the offense or defense, are going to have the upper hand compared to an opponent early on in the season that has 40 new kids on the roster and they haven't played with each other. There's just simply an advantage in that area. So I thought, for UNLV, they got to fix some things. They got Sam Houston State on week one. We'll get to that because we saw Sam Houston play in week 0. But look, the Rebels got a whole lot of work to do. And Dan Mullen, I know it's only week 0, but he's got some pressure. He's going to have to fix this. Paul Gunther in that defense, they're going to have to, make some changes. And a lot of it is just miscommunication and busted coverages and stuff like that. But their tackling wasn't great. So I think, we'll see. We can revisit this after Sam Houston and, going forward in week 3, they got a big game versus UCLA, which, some people probably thought, hey, the Rebels could probably hang with the Bruins. I mean, we'll see what UCLA looks like this weekend versus the Utah Utes, but you got to favor UCLA in the Power 4 program there in the Big Ten. Iowa State and Kansas State, the game in Dublin, Farmageddon 109th edition. Hey, we said Iowa State was going to win this game 24-21. You could go look back at the tape. I know we rolled out 2 final scores there, but this was kind of the game script for me. 2 teams that knew each other extremely well. It was sloppy and ugly game early. 2 turnovers in the first 5 minutes of this game. 4 turnovers in the first half. The Dylan Edwards injury was obviously big. He got hurt early in this game, was ruled out for the remainder of it. Weather played the factor early on, Dublin, Ireland. But still, I mean, these are 2 teams that have played in some weather. It was week 0. You would think like the long travel and the overseas travel maybe had an impact on some of those guys. And, just being a high stakes rivalry game, there's obviously nerves there, but 2 teams that overall had a whole lot of pieces back. I thought Carson Hansen, wow, what a second half from that dude. And, it was very interesting because he was getting out snapped by the RB2 Sama for about 2.5 quarters in this game. And I'm like, where's Carson Hansen? Like, this is kind of the bell cow back. And then we finally saw him. Like, he was running in between the right guard and the right tackle, and the holes were just ginormous. And he was getting north of 5 yards a carry. And I'm like, here we go. Here comes this Iowa State team. We knew that they were going to run the ball. And I think Iowa State is going to utilize the tight ends and the running backs all throughout the season, just like we thought. And I think that's going to be a trend that continues. But quarterback play matters. Coaching matters. Rocco Beck was better than Avery Johnson. And I thought, Matt Campbell was better than Chris Kleiman. K-State had the big time and wild play call. There's a difference between, I would say, aggressive play calling and reckless play calling. Iowa State and Matt Campbell on the 4th down play when they were driving to ultimately put the game away, I would say that was a play call where, it was 3rd and 1 with under 3 minutes to go, and they go the hard play action to the tight end for the first down and completely fooled out the K-State defense. That was, I would say, an aggressive play call. And that was a hell of a play. They completely, outfooled K-State there, that entire coaching staff. But the 4th and 1, when it's a low-scoring grudge match in Dublin, Ireland, and your offense hasn't really played that good, and you got a guy in Chris Kleiman at head coach for K-State going for it at a 4th and 1 at his own 39-yard line. I mean, and Avery Johnson couldn't convert. I got respect for the head coach that he's putting it in his quarterback's hands, especially with all the mobility that he has to offer. But man, like, Avery Johnson couldn't convert, and then Rocco Beck did on a clutch 4th down with his legs. So, those are the difference in plays. And I thought Matt Campbell was the more superior head coach in this game, just understanding the situation in these games. We'll get to another head coaching blunder in the nightcap on week 0. But I thought that was a big play. And obviously that flipped the game entirely because then Iowa State was able to go up 2 scores And I know K-State had the big time 75-yard touchdown or whatever it was, but still, that was a big play. It completely flipped the momentum in the Cyclones' favor. Oh man, there were some dogs in this game defensively. Romaine, the Kansas State linebacker. I'm like, my goodness, like he got in a little scrum on the Iowa State sideline. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This is what we want in a rivalry game. But man, that's a linebacker that is not afraid of the moment. He's gonna have an NFL future, I would imagine. He'll definitely declare, and he'll definitely be in the running for like these 53-man rosters because, man, he was making some big time hits out there and some big time plays, some TFLs in the process. Iowa State's Marcus Neal, the safety, was flying all over the place. He made like a big time TFL on one of K-State's backs. I think it was Jackson, when they were like dumping it out in the flat. And I'm like, man, that's a winning play right there. And that nose tackle, Dominique Orange, like, my goodness, that is a freak right in the middle of the line of scrimmage. He's going to be making some big plays all throughout the season. But man, there was like some chase down tackles that he was making, just getting a piece of the running back to ultimately stumble him, and, just winning plays and, impact plays where, hey, you get a hand on a guy and it affects his footing, and then all of a sudden, he's tripping up and he's down on the turf. Like, plays that will go on the stat sheet, but, just maybe not a full-on tackle, but like a half a tackle to alter, the ball carrier in certain situations. I mean, Iowa State was the better team, and, they deserve to win that ball game. But very impressed by the Cyclones, especially with everybody hitting the panic button with their wide receivers. And ultimately, I think they'll be just fine in a lot of these Big 12 games where, they're just going to go to the tight ends and rely on Carson Hansen and a very underrated defense, quite honestly. And Rocco Beck, man, that dude can for sure thread the needle when he needs to. And I was very impressed. Sam Houston State and Western Kentucky, 41-24 final there. We said there was going to be points in this game. I mean, I think like the over-under in this game was like 60, and everyone was all like, yeah, this thing's flying over. It didn't necessarily fly over, but like, hey, this game was projected to have points, and it did. Western Kentucky's Maverick McIver. We talked about, him coming over from Abilene Christian with Rick Bowie, who is the Abilene Christian OC. Maverick McIver, well, he had 51 pass attempts in this game, 33 for 51, 401 yards, 3 touchdowns. His numbers could have even been better. Like, Western Kentucky was running the ball here for like 7 minutes in the final, portion of the fourth quarter. So I thought, if it was a close game, this dude could have had 60 pass attempts for 500 yards. Matthew Henry, and this is just a Western Kentucky pipeline at wide receiver now. Like, Matthew Henry is just the latest and newest addition to the Western Kentucky program. Like, whether it's Easton Messer last year, whether it's Malachi Corley 2 years ago, and Jarrett Stearns, who's in the CFL now with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, tearing it up. Matthew Henry, 7 receptions, 148 yards, a touchdown. And that touchdown snag, by the way, like, I tweeted it out in the first quarter. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, this dude's tracking the ball down, front pylon corner of the end zone, tracking it down. He's got his head back. Like, dude, that is just pure skill at the wide receiver position. Western Kentucky their defense was better than I thought. Like, I'll give them some credit, and to Sam Houston team that is completely flipping the script on what they did from last year to this year, as far as the offense is concerned. But that defense was getting some takeaways. They weren't doing that last year. So I'll give them some credit there. Sam Houston scored 24 points, but they got a Hunter Watson for the Sam Houston State quarterback, Hunter Watson. He had like a 70-yard rushing touchdown on what was just poor tackling from WKU's end. And then the Sam Houston State defense like took it out of like the kid Barry at wide receiver, his hands, and they were off to the races for a touchdown. So overall, we said the Sam Houston State offense was like they were going to put up points, and sure, they put up 24 points on a Western Kentucky defense, but I have to say I wasn't really impressed with their offense. And man, there was some like that play calling in the final minutes. I know like the game was over, but my goodness, like just pound the ball like when you're at the 1 yard line, and they weren't doing that. So I don't know. Phil Longo's got this interesting game versus UNLV in week 1. I don't really know what to make of it. I would side with UNLV there, but man, this Sam Houston State team, they're an interesting bunch because I mean, defensively, like their corners couldn't cover at all. Like you could just see like just the busted coverages that they were having. And I think a lot of people are gonna have busted coverages with Western Kentucky this year, just because those wide receivers in man coverage are just gonna cook, especially in Conference USA. So this could be a long year for the Bearcats. I'm just interested to see two teams in week 0 in Sam Houston and UNLV that had poor performances. Now they're going head to head, and the Conference USA team is hosting. Well, it's a home game for them, but the game's in Houston, Texas. So I don't know. It's just a funny game. I won't be watching it because I'll be in San Jose. I'll probably tape it and maybe watch it later if I have time. But that's just gonna be a funny game, just from two teams that played in week 0, and both teams weren't really satisfied with their performance from it, and now they're playing against each other. Stanford and Hawaii. Hey, here we go. This was a fun one. 23-20, the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors are victorious on a game-winning field goal. Let's start out with Stanford. Stanford, the Cardinal. We knew the game plan for this team, especially with Ben Gulbranson at quarterback. The sample size is large enough now where we know that he's going to be the game manager. And Stanford knows that they do not have the offense to go toe-to-toe with Hawaii. So they wanted to grind this thing out. Stanford ran the ball 43 times. Micah Ford in the backfield, which I'll tell you what, that kid got a whole lot better. First career touchdown for him, which I was very surprised about, like for how good he was last year, and him just being a vital part of the offense. For him having his first career touchdown, I was like, whoa, that was pretty shocking. 26 carries, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Sam Roush, who I think is going to have a good year for the Cardinal at tight end. I thought they should have went to him more. 3 receptions for 6 yards is just unacceptable. Branson's got to find him in some certain spots. They got to drop more plays for him. And I understand the ground attack was working very well for Stanford, but there's no excuse. Like, you have to go out there and make plays in that regard if you're Stanford. So I wish that the Cardinal, that they would have went to Sam Roush a little bit more. I think it would have kept the Hawaii defense a little bit more on their heels, because Hawaii was selling out to the run because they knew that Branson wasn't going to really do anything with his arm. That's why, the Hawaii defense was just, they locked down in the 3rd and 4th quarter because they knew this offense is one-dimensional. Like, they're not even targeting their really good tight end. So I thought that was poor on Stanford's end, which obviously that falls on coaching and Frank Reich and company. And look, Branson, I mean, I will say this, major red flag for Stanford, because Branson didn't look good out there. But this is, I think, just a red flag. The fact that he came in, was a late addition, won the starting quarterback job, and this is what the team looks like. Like, if you got Branson, what does Elijah Brown look like? Because this was a kid that was on the team last year. Maybe he's still trying to adjust to the offense. Maybe it's a Frank Reich decision, which I think when you look at Frank Reich's history, you're like, okay, Ben Gulbranson is a Frank Reich quarterback, but my goodness, like, after watching that game and the way that Stanford dominated, I mean, Hawaii gifted them 7 points. I'm thinking, is Stanford going to win a game this year? Like, we're going to have to really sit down with ourselves and really have this conversation maybe by like week 5 or something. If they continue to play like this, I know it's one game, but this was a winnable game on the schedule. And especially the success that you had running the ball, this was a game that ultimately I would say Hawaii stole from that standpoint, because the time of possession was just completely lopsided. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Stanford had complete ball control in the first half. They should have scored way more than 20 points, in my professional opinion. From the Hawaii standpoint of things, we said that Hawaii, they were favored in this game. It was going to be a struggle for them, that you were going to get Stanford's best effort, and I thought this was a great test for them. Because Hawaii, I would say maybe 2 years ago under Timmy Chang, doesn't win this game. But Michael Alejado, redshirt freshman for quarterback, I'm this absolute gamer. Injured in this second quarter. I thought that was a gruesome injury from, the way that he was hurting and looking. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's only in the tent and they're taping him up. Like he's going back out there and he might not even miss a play. 27 for 39, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 30-yard rush as well. That was like in the second quarter, I believe. I mean, this guy was like scampering for like 10-yard rushes on the injury. And like that just shows you like the grit and toughness. And as an underclassman, as a quarterback, like that's great to see. And, we talked to Jimmy Chang at media days and he's like, yeah, this kid's got it. And, we saw it in that game because I don't know if they really win that game with Braden Shager. Mike Alejado is clearly more tougher. And I'll tell you what, for a redshirt freshman, for a guy that, has barely played. I know he was big time in high school, but wow, that was very impressive for a guy that had one start and just how much buy-in that he has within that group and how he's orchestrating and, getting everybody where they should be. That was awesome. And I think Hawaii, we'll see what the injury looks like and, we'll see how good this kid plays this year overall. But if I'm Hawaii for years to come, I would be keeping that guy as long as I can because that is one heck of a talent. Hawaii's defense, let's give him some kudos. I know Stanford's a one-dimensional offense and it's the Stanford Cardinal team that we just got done tearing up, but that pass defense was solid. Dennis Thurman, he did a really good job with the team last year. The numbers suggest it. But still, like they were fighting, they were getting some disruptions. Jemiah Otis was making some plays. Mendiola Jensen's interception. Wow, what an athletic play that was to set up. Got the takeaway and then ultimately to set up the game-winning drive. For the Hawaii kicker, the guy that learned how to kick on YouTube. What a story. So that was awesome. It was just a team win from Hawaii. And it was a win, like I said, that they weren't going to get last year, but year 4 under Timmy Chang, this is just kind of those games where it didn't really go your way and you're going to learn a lot yourself. You're going to learn about your team in so many different ways. In this game, and I thought that they did. This win is only going to help them for the future. I'm just very concerned about Micah Alejado for this weekend when they go to Arizona. We're going to get to the Week 1 Mountain West slate right now. So we got a full slate of Mountain West. Boise State at South Florida, first one. Just to kind of kick things off here. This game is actually Thursday afternoon. We're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, so 24 hours from now, this game's going to be going on. Boise State at South Florida. My goodness, everybody loves South Florida in this game. And, the more and more people that I've chatted with over the week, and they're like, yeah, I like South Florida to win this game. Boise State defending, Mountain West champions, college football playoff G5 representative last year, got destroyed by Penn State. Ashton Genty, with all the headlines he had last year, was in New York, Heisman Trophy finalist. And now no Ashton Genty, more pressure on Maddox Matson. And everyone likes this South Florida team with Byron Brown, who has terrible injury history. The game is in South Florida, which I think that's why people like the Bulls here. But this South Florida defense last year was no good. Bottom 30 in the country in rush defense. They allowed 187 rush yards. I mean, they bring, for the most part, some pieces back. It's not like they addressed this in the portal or anything. And South Florida allowed 30-plus points in 8 games last year. That is a red flag. I think this game, folks, is going to go exactly, or to a certain extent, for about a large majority of this game, how Boise State and Georgia Southern in Week 1 went last year. Shootout, points galore, not so great defense, both teams trying to adjust. Wouldn't it be shocked if there's a lightning delay in this one because there's going to be bad weather over there. It's going to be hot, humid, muggy, slimy. It's not going to feel good on the players' bodies. But Boise State's been preparing for this atmosphere in this environment. Like Spencer Danielson has had, hey, let's go run to the locker room for lightning delays. They got like the rotating sprinklers like to prepare for the wet weather. Like they're doing some crazy stuff at practice at Boise State to feel like they're playing at South Florida. So this is all a part of good coaching, proper preparation. I like Boise State to win this game. I think they're going to win this game. I'm going to say by 10 points. I don't buy into South Florida. I saw this team last year in the Hawaii Bowl. They had, the backup quarterback Archie. Their wide receivers are good. They play fast. South Florida, Byron Brown, is a really good quarterback. He's healthy for this game in week 1, which is something that, is always, under Byron Brown's name is, hey, is he on the injury report? And hey, is he going to play? But he's going to play this game. He's healthy. He's had himself a healthy fall camp here. I just think Boise State, they're going to be able to run the ball here. Like everyone's hitting the panic button with no Ashton Genty, but Sire Gaines and Malik Sherrod are still really good. I like Matt Lauder for a touchdown in this game, the tight end for the Broncos. That is Maddox Matson's go-to guy. I'm looking for a massive bounce back season out of Chris Marshall. I know this was a guy that had some off the field issues, was once upon a time at Ole Miss, like transferred and went down to junior college, was on the team last year, was kind of battling with some injuries. This is the year for Chris Marshall. He's had a really good fall camp for Boise State. And look, they still bring back Caples and a really good offensive line. That's what I really like in this game. Boise State's offensive line to just create all of these holes for the running backs for Boise State. And I think that's what's going to be the difference in this game. Boise State's going to be able to run the ball pretty successfully, and Matson's going to make enough plays in this one to get out of town with the W. So I like Boise State in this one. I understand why people like South Florida in this game. I think it's going to be a back and forth game. It could be one score, but Boise's going to pull away here in the 4th, and they're going to get that 2-score cushion ultimately on the final score. Wyoming and Akron also tomorrow. This is kind of one of those funny games like, whoa, like the Mountain West teams going to a MAC venue. The Akron Zips, but just a disclaimer here, Akron are not eligible for bowl this year due to poor academics. So we'll see what this team looks like in week 1, how much hunger they have. They're going to obviously, I would say they're going to have hunger in this game. But if it's a terrible season for Akron, you got to wonder where this team's going to be by like week 9. They got Ben Finley at quarterback. This is a veteran quarterback. Akron has not been good over the years. Like they were like one of the worst MAC teams and one of the worst teams overall in the country when they were winning like 1 to 2 games. Like they've been slowly building this thing up, but I still think this is the Wyoming Cowboys. Like this is the one team where I went to Mountain West Media Days and I was like, okay, I like the confidence out of this team. I probably had them a little too low on my power rankings. I boosted them up a little bit. I think John Michael Gillenborg is going to have a fantastic season. I think he's got an NFL future at the tight end position. And look, Jay Sauvel was really disappointed about what happened last year. Like they were losing. They got destroyed by Arizona State. In hindsight, not a terrible loss, but you lost to them by 40 plus. You lost to Idaho in your own building in Laramie. They took uncharacteristic losses. I think Jay Sauvel is going to win some games in Laramie this year. This game is in Akron, Ohio. This is a game that they're going to take care of. It's probably going to be low scoring and ugly to start out, but they got Caden Anderson at quarterback. He really looked good. He was a major upgrade from Evan Svoboda last year. They just could not move the ball with Svoboda. They were able to move it versus Caden Anderson with Caden Anderson. I like Jalen Sargent at wide receiver, Sam Scott in the running back position. Ethan Solsatz, this is a guy to keep your eye on. Transfer from Lindenwood. This guy's going to be a big part of the Wyoming defense this year at the linebacker position. I like him to make tons of plays in this game. And just overall, I think Wyoming is going to win this game by a touchdown. The defense is still good for Wyoming, and the offensive line's a strength for this team. So I like the Cowboys a lot, to take care of business here. This is just kind of another one of these ugly underdogs that People are buying into the Akron Zips. I'm personally not. But again, we'll see what what version of these teams that we get in week one. But there's no doubt that Wyoming is a hungry bunch this year, and they got pieces back. Stony Brook and San Diego State. I think this is a Thursday night game or a Friday night game as well. But hey, regardless, it's an FCS team going from New York all the way to Southern California. This is a very far trip for an FCS team. The Stony Brook Seawolves. This was an 8-4 team last year overall, but there's a difference. They're playing in the Colonial Athletic Association. This is a Mountain West team. And I know I have San Diego State picked last to finish in the Mountain West, but this is a game that Sean Lewis wins pretty decisively. I would have San Diego State winning this game by 3 touchdowns probably. I think Jaden Denegal will look good in this game, even though I'm still on the fence about their quarterback situation there in Southern California. But this is just one of these games where the running backs will run wild. I think they'll try to establish some things with the wide receivers. Their defense will be able to, stifle the Stony Brook Seawolves here overall. And I like San Diego State in this game. It's really not a bold prediction. They're going to win this game with margin. If they don't, and this game's close, I think this could be a conversation we have next week and, what this team looks like going forward. But this is a game for Sean Lewis. They have to win, and he needs to impress some people in San Diego. Get the fans in the stands, run up the scoreboard, keep it going. If you throw in Bert Emanuel in this game, he lost the QB1 job, lost it in fall camp. He's going to want to make some plays. This is just one of those, San Diego State. We got a lot of people in impress here. In year one, it didn't go our way. Year two, people don't really believe in us. Let's flex our muscles here on a Seawolf team that is going to be making a far trip across the country here. Terrible spot, if you ask me, here in week one for the FCS team. Central Michigan and San Jose State. This is a Friday night tip. I know we've been bringing the coverage from San Jose State all throughout fall camp, even going back to the spring. We did our preview a few weeks back with Adam Jacksa, Central Michigan play-by-play voice. He'll be making the trip out to San Jose. If you haven't already, go check that out. That's on our YouTube. We've been getting tons of positive feedback, and I appreciate all the love. With that video and everybody, just appreciative for the coverage, which, hey, I'm appreciative for everybody here that comes in and tunes in. So thank you very much. But look, this is a game for San Jose State that they need to win, and I think they should win. It's a whole lot of unknowns from the Central Michigan side. They're going to be rolling out Joe Labus, who started 6 games for the Chippewas last year. The running backs, I think, are going to be good for the Chips this year, just overall, just in the grand scheme of things. I like what they have. They got the Biggins as RB2, RB1. I'm a big fan of Trey Cornish. I think he's going to have a monster year. I think ultimately he will be the RB1. We'll see what they look like Friday night versus the Spartans. But look, San Jose State is going to be able to throw the ball on this team, I think. The strength of Central Michigan is the defensive line and the linebackers. Jordan Kwiatkowski, they bring back their top tackler. Central Michigan does bring back some pieces defensively. Offensively, who knows what this team looks like? Even the San Jose State coaching staff doesn't know what this team's looking like. Derek Odom is watching tape from Colorado State and Eastern Washington. You got Craig Stutzman, offensive coordinator for San Jose State, watching stuff from Army. It's a challenge to prep for week one, especially with the new coaching staff. And it's just very interesting to get their perspective because it's going to be a feeling out process in this game. San Jose State, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to sling the ball. They're going to throw. They're going to put up points. We're going to get more out of the ground attack from the Spartans this year. But I'm just very fascinated just to see what the Chippewas look like in this game because even I don't really know. And I'm prepping for this game. I'm on the air for this one on the radio. And quite honestly, I'm prepared for everything at this point. Trick plays, backup quarterbacks coming in, the whole 9 yards, because Matt Drinkle is in a spot here in week one where he could catch the Spartans off guard here for the first quarter, maybe in this one. But when it's all said and done, I think San Jose State, they're just going to be too explosive for this team. And it's a really tough spot. Central Michigan's got a 3-game road trip to start the year. at San Jose State, at Pitt the next week, and then at Ann Arbor, Michigan against the Michigan Wolverines and Bryce Underwood. Good luck. And we talked about this with Adam. Like, that is one of the worst road trips in all of college football to start out the year. Like, it is brutal, the draw that this team got. And I think Drinkle's going to be a really good coach out there in Mount Pleasant, but it's going to be tough year one for them. And, they bring back some experience with Joe Labus, but the wide receivers, they lose their top 5 wide receivers. This Central Michigan team on offense, like we said, is just a big fat question mark. I think they're going to be a feisty defense, but I think the explosiveness with the wide receivers across the board with San Jose State is going to be a little too much. And the line of scrimmage battle is crucial in this game. The coaches talked about it, and, just a lot of the players too. Like, the most physical team here is going to win the game. And there's a lot of green flags with the San Jose State offensive line. Like, Hudson Mesa's the backup center for this team, and you can very much argue he should be the starting center. So they got tons of depth now at the offensive line for San Jose State, which I think is a good thing heading into week one, because we all knew that was the downside to this team last year. Just the offensive line, run blocking, pass protection, and week one really put themselves in a big hole with the uncertainties of the offensive line versus Sacramento State. I don't think there'll be any question marks within that area this game. And I think overall, San Jose State should be able to win this game with margin. UNLV and Sam Houston State, UNLV at Sam Houston State. This is, like we briefly said, just a funky game. UNLV and Sam Houston were not pleased with their week 0 performances. The Bearcats, who knows what they bring offensively to the table. This is the game I think UNLV is going to win. This is going to be Dan Mullen is probably chewing out his guys all week long. We got to go. We got to be better. We got to tackle better. Our wide receivers got to be better. I will say this just to expand on UNLV a little bit. Jaden Bradley did look good out there. But outside of that, I want to see more from those wide receivers. So that's something I'm most certainly looking forward to in this one. And look, they better win in man coverage against Sam Houston's defense, because they couldn't cover against Western Kentucky. And I know the Western Kentucky wide receivers are good, but these are Mountain West athletes, and these are guys that used to be, in the once upon a time at SEC schools. So you got to take Sam Houston out to the woodshed, and I think UNLV will in this game. Nevada and Penn State. Now we're off to the Saturday games. Penn State's a 44-point favorite. This is one of the best teams in the country. One of the best ground attacks you'll find in all of college football this year with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. This is going to be one of these games that James Franklin just flexes his muscles. He'll win by 50 points. Nevada's going to be, I think, a frisky team this year. Not in this game. And we know that James Franklin, he knows the point spread to all these games. He's going to run it up and press the boosters, make sure that he covers for everybody. Like, this is what Franklin does. I think he beat Kent State last year by 60. So it's just very tough for Nevada. And I hate these games for these Mountain West teams, especially with some new pieces. Like, what are you going to learn about your team? Like, we're going to get to New Mexico here in a minute. What are you going to learn about your team? What, that you got out of town for 4 quarters? You got exposed to a rambunctious environment? I hate when these teams that have new pieces, have new coaching staffs, have new personnel, go and just are going to go to week 1 and get destroyed by one of the top teams in the country. And we all know it's a paycheck game for Nevada, and it's been on the schedule for years, but still, just not the greatest situation to be in to start the season. You could pencil in 0-1 for the Wolfpack. Bucknell at Air Force. I've kind of talked about this game a lot. Look, Air Force, I think they're going to finish 4th, 5th in the Mountain West. I think they'll be much improved from what they were last year. Troy Calhoun does not have back-to-back crappy seasons. And I think Air Force is going to be all about figuring out the quarterback situation. I think Josh Johnson and Liam Zarka play. I think whoever looks more fluid against Bucknell is going to be the QB1 starter. Air Force has kept things hush-hush, as they always do. But the good news is that they don't really have too many personnel changes, because for the most part, all these dudes come back. So unless, this is not a massive, graduating team from last year to this year, everybody that played good on this team last year is back. Bruin Fleischman at tight end. He'll be throwing down the blocks for this team. The triple option, I think, will be in full effect here. I think just whatever looks more fluid from as far as the eye test is concerned, is who's going to be the starting quarterback for this team. And it's whether it's Johnson or Zarka, we'll wait and see. But I will definitely have eyes on the Air Force offense, and we'll definitely be reporting back on this. But regardless, Bucknell's not going to score here against a very stingy Air Force defensive line. And we already know Air Force is going to play ball control. And this is going to be a very boring game, but for maybe the average Jeffrey or Joe. But for someone like me that wants to learn a little bit more about the Air Force Falcons and what they bring offensively with the new quarterback, I will have all eyes on it. New Mexico and Michigan. Michigan, a 35-point favorite in this game. That just seems a little high. I know Michigan, they got Haynes at running back now from Alabama. If you want to take a little flyer for the Heisman, that's a guy that definitely could, be in the running for it. I know it's a quarterback award for the most part, but Haynes is going to go nuts this year. The Alabama transfer at running back. We already know the pipeline of running backs with Michigan with that offensive line. Sharon Moore loves to run the ball. I mean, this was one of the worst offenses in all of college football last year from an offensive passing standpoint. Michigan had the fourth worst passing offense in college football. Guess who was worse? Army, Navy, and Air Force. Teams that don't throw the ball. That's how bad Michigan's passing offense was last year. With all that being said, they got Bryce Underwood, a 5-star, just turned 18 years old. He's going to be very good. I think Michigan's going to run it up here. Going back to our point earlier, if you're New Mexico, this is just a terrible spot to be in with Jason Eck, brand new head coach. Jack Lane at quarterback. I don't think New Mexico's going to score much. I'll give them 7 points at the most. This Michigan defense is going to still be very good. They were good last year. This is a team that just reloads, and they don't really lose too many pieces. Like, they sent Mason Graham and Will Johnson to the NFL, but for the most part, they got a lot of the key contributors back. So Michigan's going to be able to name their number here. And for New Mexico, like we said, just a terrible spot to be in Ann Arbor week 1. UTEP at Utah State. Man, this is a fun one. UTEP coming out of Conference USA will be in the Mountain West next year. I have to say, UTEP, like, I've seen a lot of coverage on this team, just throughout the offseason. Malachi Nelson is your QB1. Former Boise State Bronco and USC Trojan, the former 5-star quarterback, was one of the top quarterbacks, like, in 2022. Now, third stop. He's finally won a quarterback job, and this was a very competitive camp out there in El Paso. Like, he was competing with Tyler Locklear. He was competing with some other dudes. This Malachi Nelson had to work for the job. So if he earned it, and this was something that just got announced like a few days ago, I can't wait to see him play, because this is the first time that we're going to really see him in action, against like a legitimate team, and, with a whole lot of stakes involved here in a regular season game in week 1. UTEP is at Utah State. Utah State with Bronco Mendenhall. I expect them to be better than what maybe the public projects them this season in 2025. They got Bryson Barnes at quarterback. I'm a big Bryson Barnes fan. Just great leader. I saw that at media days, the way he talks, the belief. They got Kevin McGivern at offensive coordinator. He's going to have that team right. I'm very interested to see the Utah State wide receivers, because I don't really know what to make of them. This season, I expect Bryson Barnes to, score some points, but like Utah State, I would be very shocked if they lost this game. I think UTEP is a year away. I know a lot of people like UTEP. I would actually put like the Miners as like a 7-5 team this year, just because I think when you get into Conference USA play, I think they're going to be ahead, than the Kennesaw States and the Florida Atlantics and the Delaware Blue Hens. Like, Conference USA is very weak, like we talked about on last week's podcast. But I think UTEP, they learned about themselves last year. I like Scotty Walden as a head coach. I think we're going to find out what Malachi Nelson is all about. And if he doesn't deliver, then they got Tyler Locklear, who knows the system and was the starter for them last year. As for Utah State, they got a whole lot of brand new pieces here. I just want to see how they look. They're going to be playing at Maverick Stadium. That place will be off the hook. And I would expect Utah State to win this game just because I got so much respect for Bronco Mendenhall and what he has for his teams. I would be actually shocked if they lost this game. But if that offense is not right, UTEP is more than capable of putting up some points. But I don't know. We're gonna find out together what these teams are all about, and I'm excited to watch it. We got 2 more games in the Mountain West portion of week 1 here. Hawaii to Arizona. So Hawaii comes off the 23-20 win versus Stanford. One thing else we should mention, Pofele Ashlock looked great at wide receiver. Like he was running those out routes like he was running them for 4 years. And just the cohesiveness and, just the timing with Micah Alejado, you could tell those guys been putting in the work. Like we said, I have very, I'm very questionable about what version of Micah Alejado we're going to get here just based off the injury. You come off the emotional win, extremely emotional. Like Timmy Chang is, he's so excited. He's jumping in jubilation. He's having fun with his team, rightfully so. Now you go to Tucson, Arizona. It was a physical game for you. You just beat an ACC team that was a Stanford team that was physical. They came up with more injuries than I would have liked from their perspective. And now they go to Arizona. It's going to be hot in Tucson. When is it not in the desert? But this Arizona Wildcat team, very disappointing last year. Brent Brennan, former San Jose State head coach in year 2. And he's got to impress a whole lot of people here. He needs blowout potential here. And it would help, especially with what everybody saw with Hawaii on national TV. I actually like Arizona quite a bit in this game. I think they're going to win this game by, I think, north of 3 touchdowns. And I would not be surprised if Micah Alejado, we're going to see what he looks like for a quarter here, but I would not be shocked if Hawaii mails it in. And I know like that they won't do that and stuff, but if Arizona and Noah Fafita are just out here slinging this thing like crazy, and it's a lopsided score early, you do not want to risk Micah Alejado for the entirety of the season here. Like, give him some rest, throw in Luke Weaver, and just move on. Because you got Sam Houston State in week 3 coming to the island, and that's going to be a very winnable game for you. And you got Portland State in week 4. Like, stay the course if you're Hawaii. And Arizona, like we said, like they're going to be in a very feisty Big 12 conference this year, and they're not projected to do anything, which I guess for Brent Brennan, that's probably a good thing, because we already know when this guy's projected to do good, or when he's a favorite or whatever it may be, it's not the greatest thing. He is a head coach where when he is counted out, that's when he's going to get the best out of his teams, and he'll be able to rally the troops. That's what we saw in San Jose for so many years. So I like Arizona to come out, flex their muscles in this game, and I think they're going to get a good showing. They got a decent amount of San Jose State transfers, which I'm just honestly pretty excited to see. Like they got Javion Cole, who was at Texas last year, was at San Jose State 2 years ago. I think he's their projecting starting corner. They got Michael Dansby, who was a starting corner for the Spartans last year. Like this, Brent Brennan brought a majority of his staff from San Jose to Arizona. They need a bounce back year. And with how heated the Big 12 is, a lot of people won't make the case for them, but I think they might be the team in the Big 12 where if you overlook them, Noah Fafita is a talented enough of a quarterback where he's going to be able to do some damage. And I don't know. I think Arizona's in a really good spot here week 1, and especially with Hawaii with the travel coming off the island. Not the greatest situation to be in, but I'm excited to see Arizona, and just hopefully nobody gets hurt here for Hawaii and they just get out of here alive. The final game involving a Mountain West team in week 1, Colorado State and Washington, the Huskies. I'm a big fan of Washington this year. Jed Fish, year 2, out in Seattle. First and foremost, the Pacific Northwest. Like, nobody watches these games like it's an 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time kickoff. Like, all the East Coasters will be fast asleep. This is going to be a nutty atmosphere. Washington doesn't get enough credit for their home field and their crowd and how crazy it can get. Braden Fowler Nicolosi at quarterback for the Rams. Like, this is going to be a real environment he's going to have to endure. I'm a big fan of Washington this year. I think they're going to be a wild card in the Big Ten. Damon Williams that kid's got a cannon. And quite honestly, that's another Heisman Trophy dark horse. Like if Washington is clicking and they're scoring upsets like in Big Ten play this year, buckle up. This team, I think, is going to be able to score some points. Jed Fish came from Arizona to Washington. That was not his team last year. He didn't recruit half of those guys. And you could tell, like, with Will Rogers, it was just a bad fit. Now they got, like, the homegrown quarterback in Damon Williams. I like Washington a lot this year. I think they could win anywhere from 8 games. I think that's a reasonable situation that they could be in this year, where you never know. They might beat Ohio State. Ohio State comes to them this year. So I think they're going to score some big wins this year, Washington. They're going to be a fun team to watch. It's going to be a prolific offense. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm very interested to see the Tyson Summers defense. I think they're going to be overwhelmed in this game. They got a whole lot of moving pieces on the defensive, just overall this year on defense. I think they'll be overwhelmed, but Jay Norvell has preached that we're going to play fast and we're going to get back to what our offense was years ago. We had to adjust last year because of the Torrey Horton injury. And, you know, they weren't as explosive as wide receiver. Quite honestly, Horton was their only guy in a sense where, you know, when he gets injured last year for San Jose State, and then all of a sudden you got a Caleb Goody as your wide receiver one, you know, guys that haven't been exposed to that are all of a sudden, you know, the number one option on the scouting report. It's a completely different situation that you're in. So I think Colorado State has a chance to be competitive in this game. I would say this thing's just going to be a shootout because I don't think Colorado State's defense is going to show up. I think Washington will actually have some trouble with the Rams offense, but I think Washington's be able to score a lot of points too. I would actually have this game if you were going to ask me, Nick, what's your final score prediction? I would say this thing is like 42 to like 30, 42-31, Washington. So I think this will be a fun game, and it's an 8 p.m. start. I'll definitely have eyes on it. So that will do for the Mountain West games. As far as some games on Saturday, there's obviously some big-time games, folks, like the Texas-Ohio State game, the one that's on everybody's calendar. It's a big noon kickoff. Everybody and their mother will be there. College game day's there. It's going to be the talk of the weekend because this is the game everyone wants to watch. It's Texas, number one team in the country on the preseason polls, and Ohio State, the defending national champions. You're going to ask me for a pick in this game? Low-scoring grudge match. I think the defenses are going to be solid on both sides. You got Arch Manning, very small sample size with the kid, right? Like, he hasn't even played. Like, we're talking very minimal snaps. Like, he played the fourth quarter versus Colorado State, the fourth quarter versus UTSA, the fourth quarter versus, like, Louisiana Monroe, like, a snap versus Texas A&M last year. Like, there's just not a lot of snaps, and all of a sudden you're the guy, and he's talking because he's a Manning. Like, I understand it. Like, he's QB1. He's the Heisman Trophy finalist, like, favorite, excuse me. There's a lot of hype around the kid. Like, we're already talking number one pick in the NFL draft. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. So I think he's going to struggle against this Ohio State team. Matt Patricia's the defensive coordinator for Ohio State, which that's pretty funny if you ask me. But I think he'll be solid, like, with this team. He's got the talent. Like, they only spend millions of dollars on this team. You better be good. But it's just funny to see how, like, this guy once upon a time was a New England Patriots defensive coordinator, and how things have changed. So yeah, I would say if you were to tell me, Nick, you got to pick a side, I'm not a big fan of either of these programs, but I would say Ohio State wins the game. I would say it's like a 20-17 type game. I would say it's a low-scoring grudge match. This is all the hype and all the fireworks that this game has potentially to be. No joke, you watch all the games on the college football Saturday slate, this will be one of the more boring games you watch. And it will be a great game defensively, but if you're expecting fireworks in this game, I'd be floored if it happens. So that's where I'm at on the game. I would side with Ohio State. I don't love it. I like a low-scoring game better. As far as some other intriguing games, like, I'm just excited to see some teams. Mississippi State at Southern Miss. This is just a hilarious game to me. You got SEC team going to a Sun Belt team. So you're going to a Sun Belt venue, an SEC team. Mississippi State is projected to be one of the worst SEC teams in the country, or just overall. They're picked to be on the bottom of the SEC. With all that being said, I do think that they're going to be whatever. Like, they're only projected to win 4 games. They're going to probably win 5-6 games. I know the schedule's brutal for them, but still, they bring back Blake Shapen at quarterback. I really like their backfield. Devon Booth, former Utah State Aggie, and they got one of the best names in college football, Fluff Bothwell. He's only a sophomore. He came from South Alabama. He was tearing it up in the Sun Belt, and now he gets to go up and against another Sun Belt defense. I would say the wise guys and all the sharps that that you hear talk like in the college football space and all of the experts, they love the Southern Miss team this year. Shout out to our boy Colby Dant that we met and we had on the live stream at Mount West Media Days. He loves the Southern Miss Golden Eagles this year. Why? Because this team, Southern Miss, is basically a cut and paste of what Marshall was last year. They bring Marshall head coach over. They actually have offensive coordinator Blake Anderson. They bring in a lot of players on Marshall's defense and, just plucking them in this Southern Miss defense. I think Southern Miss is going to actually be like a 7-win team this year. And everybody's got them bolstered on their power ranking because they only won 1 game last year. But this is Mississippi State. This is still an SEC team. Even though this is kind of one of those funny games like, hey, you got to go to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. This is the big brother, little brother spot, and the little brother's playing at home. I think big brother wins this game. And I usually root for the little brother more often than not. But I had to say, the love for Southern Miss has just gotten a little out of control. So I'm siding with Mississippi State here. I think they're going to win this game by 17 points. I'm very interested to see Florida Atlantic this year. We're just jumping all over the place right now in these Saturday games. Florida Atlantic is at Maryland. Maryland, I think, is going to be no good in the Big Ten this year. They always start out 3-0, 4-0, and then they just completely crash and burn. Florida Atlantic has a chance to go on the road at Maryland and potentially win this game. And I hope Scott Van Pelt isn't watching because he would probably not like this. But Florida Atlantic, what does this team got going for them? So last year, they were no good. Like, they had Tom Herman at head coach. They fired him. Who'd they bring in? They brought in Zach Kittley, the youngest, and he's the youngest head coach in the FBS this year. Zach Kittley was at Western Kentucky. He was the offensive coordinator. Now he's the head coach. He brought in his quarterback, Caden Veldkamp. He brought in Easton Messer, who we mentioned earlier was the prize possession for Western Kentucky last year at the wide receiver position. So this team's got continuity. I like that, especially when you're going into a Big Ten environment. I don't really buy into much into Maryland. Like I said, their quarterback play is a little bit fuzzy, has been for a long while now. I just don't really like Maryland as a whole. Florida Atlantic, why I mention this is because when you got roster continuity like this and you got a high-flying offense, you have the chance in week 1 to go score an upset, especially when you got an explosive playmakers and quarterback like you do. Veldkamp's got wheels too. So I actually like Florida Atlantic to, at the very least, keep this game close. I think they're like a 2-touchdown underdog. They're going to keep this within 1 score. I would be shocked if Florida Atlantic's offense comes out sluggish. So that's where I'm at with this. I just got a whole lot of intrigue in it. And hey, we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be a fun game potentially. And I don't really know what to make of FAU's defense, but it's one of these things where when you got an offense that's got so much familiarity with each other, and you bring in the offensive coordinator who, he's the head coach and he's going to go recruit Boca Raton. I mean, that's a pretty good selling point. Hey, you're in Florida. Yeah, the weather's not great, but look at this place. So Florida Atlantic's they're going to be ready. And I think they might be that wild card like American team where they just score an upset here and there. Like, they're the team in week 8. It's like, hey, sleepy spot versus Florida Atlantic, and then they just compound 40 points on you. So we're going to see where this team is at, but that's the team that I just have circled just because of, just who they bring over and just for what was a disaster last year for this team. There's some other big games like Alabama and Florida State. I'm gonna just get this out of the way now. I think Alabama destroys Florida State. I am extremely high on Alabama this year. They got Ty Simpson at quarterback. I know they just lost Jam Miller for the year at running back, but still, Ryan Williams is an absolute stud. Kalen DeBoer did not have the year he wanted last year. And I think a lot of that was because Jalen Milroe just really wasn't his quarterback. I think Ty Simpson is going to probably be pretty damn good in this Ryan Grubb system. And guess what? Like the name we just mentioned, Ryan Grubb. This was the guy calling all the plays at Washington for the Huskies, the team that went to the national championship with Michael Penix. This team is going to be explosive again. And I think that's a great thing for Alabama. Alabama is going to be right back where they left off after all of these years. Last year was an off year for them. And people were making arguments for them from the college football playoff, which I wasn't on that boat, but still. Alabama's going to be very good. Florida State, this team is on a downward spiral right now. Thomas Castellanos, former Boston College quarterback, he's doing a lot of chirping right now, and I don't like that. He's calling out Alabama. You're going to get destroyed. The game's in Tallahassee. I don't care. Alabama's going to win this game with margin. I think they could win this game by 4 touchdowns. It wouldn't shock me. And Alabama historically is awesome in these week ones. And I know they play like New Mexico State and Marshall. Like this is a real opponent. They're going to destroy Florida State. And I feel pretty comfortable with it. LSU and Clemson. This is another one on everybody's most watched games list for this weekend. Quite honestly, until Brian Kelly wins a big game in week 1 or like in week 0, whatever, I'm not going to pick them. I got Clemson by 3 points in this game. I think you got Death Valley versus Death Valley here. You got the Tigers versus the Tigers. You trust Dabo Swinney more or you trust Brian Kelly more? Sometimes you don't need to overthink these things. And quite honestly, I think Clemson is going to come out here with Cade Klubnik. This is a big-time Heisman Trophy tilt as well. You're going to be the favorite if you win this game and you have a good game. I think Cade Klubnik, like if you're going to tell me like, okay, Nick, pick one of the favorites to win the Heisman Trophy, I would go with Cade Klubnik personally. He's got the wide receivers back this year. He's got the wheels. He's in a very good situation. Offensive line is pretty good. Defensively, they're going to win some games. I think they're in the forefront of the ACC to make a college football playoff. The stars are aligned with Clemson to do some big things this year. And I think Dabo Swinney, he had his down years. He's back. And we saw that juice from them last year. When they heated up and, beat SMU in the fashion that they did it in and nearly beating Texas the way that they did on the road in the college football playoff environment. I like Clemson a lot this year. And I know a lot of people like them a lot this year. I'm not going to go as far as like, hey, you're going to win the Natty. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But as far as this game, as far as the ACC is concerned, I like them to take care of business. And look, if you're at home and you got the better coach and, quarterback is pretty equivalent between Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier, I'm going to side with the team that, more often than not, gets these games done. And I think Clemson's going to be that team that, comes up with the win here. And, yeah, in the Tigers clash, sometimes you don't need to overthink these big games. And a lot of times, we hype up these big-time games, and a lot of times it's just not the fireworks that we expect. From a scoring standpoint, I don't really know what to think because LSU, for how explosive their offense has been over the years, they play in a lot of these low-scoring grudge matches, especially when we get to SEC play. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a 17-14 type game or maybe even a little higher, like a 24-20 game. I would say until Brian Kelly wins one of these big games early on in the season, I'm not going to pick them to do so. And sometimes you just don't need to overthink it. I think a lot of people are overthinking it with LSU right now. And I know they bring back Nussmeier as a big-time decision. Should I declare for the draft or should I come back? He's bringing back some big-time pieces along with him. I just like Clemson in this spot, and I think the togetherness and Dabo Swinney doing what he did last year, I think it's going to carry over. There's only a few more games that I want to talk about. Cal and Oregon State. This is just a fun one to me. Like this is old school Pac-12 and old school for someone like me. Like whatever. Like old school because we've gotten so out of just the conference realignment stuff and just like look, we got Cal and Stanford in the ACC, and I hate it when they're going across the country to play a conference game. Like these are the games that I loved, and I know it was only 2 years ago when Cal and Oregon State were playing each other, but this just feels right. This is just a game that's got a whole lot of intrigue. I like Oregon State, like Reser Stadium. I went there in person. That's just a fun environment and a fun stadium. And look, Cal's got to go to Corvallis. They've been here plenty of times. Justin Wilcox has done this trip. Cal's got some pressure on them this year. Whatever. Jaden Ott transfers. Fernando Mendoza transfers. Like, they're starting a true freshman quarterback. You're going to Reser Stadium, bud. Like, this is between Cal and them starting the true freshman and then bringing in some big-time pieces. Like, they got Boom Jock at linebacker. I think they brought in Caleb Goody as well from Colorado State. Like, they got some pieces there in Cal. And I know they're not projected to do too much in the ACC this year, but this is just what I would call, as silly as it sounds, a fun non-conference game. And Oregon State, a lot of intrigue for them this year. Year 2 of Trent Bray, kind of a new era now with Oregon State after Jonathan Smith packed his bags. It didn't go your way last year. You know, you played in the funky Mountain West schedule, and now you're playing all these. You want to talk about funky, like they're going to Tulsa this year. Oregon State is. So, look, there's this is just one of many fun games that Oregon State is going to play this year, and they got Malik Murphy at quarterback. Like, not how the mighty have fallen, I would say, but like, wow, how this guy became the journeyman, right? From Texas to Duke, and now, hey, let's go to the Pacific Northwest and Corvallis, and let's go. Oregon State's going to be very pro-heavy, pro-run, and, ground attack again. They got Anthony Hankerson, who's the former Colorado Buffalo. He was on the team last year. They're going to be good. I just saw, I think Darius Clemens, the wide receiver for Oregon State, just tore his ACL. Best to him. But for what's already just a not so great wide receiver room, you lose your wide receiver too. That's a problem. They still got Trent Walker at wide receiver 1. Their tight ends. Offensive line, not what it used to be from previous years. A lot of those guys are in the NFL now, so I'm interested to see that. But this is just a fun game, and a game where I couldn't tell you who's going to win. And for Cal, for the unknowns that they have, and, let's just be honest, a little pressure there in Cal Berkeley now with that coaching staff. And to a certain extent with Oregon State, right? Jonathan Smith packs his bags, and maybe people in Corvallis are saying, is Trent Bray the guy? So I don't know. This is kind of one of those games I just have circled, just like that FAU Maryland game. Like, hey, let's just sit back and watch it and enjoy ourselves. On the way out here, TCU and North Carolina are playing on Monday night. North Carolina with Bill Belichick, Chapel Bill. I just can't wait to see what this team looks like. North Carolina with Bill Belichick. He's got one of the more fascinating coaching staffs on this, just overall, top to bottom. You obviously got Chapel Bill Belichick. Like, he's going to be he's one of the greatest coaches ever. Say what you want, whatever. Tom Brady helped him out, whatever. This guy's got a decorated career with so many Super Bowls. You got to respect the guy. All right. You got Steve Belichick as the defensive coordinator. He's kind of really just been the guy that's been also organizing just the roster as a whole, recruiting guys, bringing people in. Hey, come play with us. Bill Belichick's son, Steve, has been in the forefront of that. But then you get in you got guys like Freddie Kitchens, who is a failed Cleveland Browns head coach. He's, I think, the offensive coordinator for this team. They got Chris Jones, former Edmonton Elks head coach. Like, there's just a lot of whoa, this guy's on the staff too, and he's got this role, and he had himself a head coaching career, and it didn't work out so well, and now he's at North Carolina. They got a lot of those guys. North Carolina does. Gio Lopez, I believe, is going to start for North Carolina, the South Alabama transfer. I know they still have Max Johnson on this roster, the former LSU Tiger, and he was recovering from a gruesome injury last year. So who knows what this UNC team looks like? I'm very fascinated to see. Who knows? but this is going to be a fun team. I can't wait to see what they look like. And they got the TCU team. TCU just loves to play these teams now. They played Colorado in the Deion Sanders premiere game, and now they get to play Bill Belichick here to start out the era in North Carolina. So that will do it here. We got a fun slate of games this weekend. Long episode, but hey, we're here to talk college football. Just overall, my thoughts. Wanted to get a week 0 recap in the process. It's been a busy week for us. We'll be broadcasting San Jose State and Central Michigan live on the air Friday night, 7:30 Pacific Standard Time. That game will be. If you're looking for it, you want to hear me, you want to hear more of me, that will be on 90.5 FM KSJS. If you're in the Bay Area, or if you're anywhere outside of that region, it will be ksjs.org, and it'll take you to, the radio station's website. And not hard to navigate. You just find the play button on the website, and you hit play, and then my voice will be coming on your web browser, cellular device, whatever you may be listening on. So that's what we'll be up to. But there will be no doubt when I'm done with that game on Friday night, we will be all eyes on the Mountain West, college football as a whole on Saturday. We even got some Sunday, Monday games too, which will be fun. So we'll be catching up with you down the road. We'll be doing some live streams. We'll be tweeting some stuff out along the way. We'll be having tons more coverage here, college football, you name it. So that will do it for us here on the Sports Sentiment. Once again, I am your host, Nick Urias, and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.